Hi, Cappie guys here. We're going to make chicken brine. I've got 2 boneless, skinless chicken breasts. I've taken off the tenderloins on the back, the little tenderloin pieces, and I'm saving them for later. And I'm going to cut off these little points here, just so that I can have 4 nice pieces, and I'm also going to save these for later with the tenderloins to use them for another dish at another time. So I'm going to take the chicken breast, and I'm going to hold the top, the thick part of the chicken breast, and I'm going to take my knife. You can use a bony knife or any medium, small size knife, and I'm just going to cut them in half so I have a thinner piece to get more flavor on the chicken breast. So I'm going to do both of those. All right, I'm going to spread these out on this plastic wrap that I've put down on my breadboard. And I'm going to season them, because the idea behind good flavor without a lot of fat is making sure you get the seasonings in everything you cook, so in every layer. So this is my first layer. I'm going to take a little salt on each of the breasts, and I'm not going to use too much because I'm going to put something else that's salty in it in a little while. I'm going to use some of this fresh ground pepper, my favorite garlic garni. Sprinkle a little bit of that on each breast. My secret ingredient, chili powder, but I only use a little bit, just enough to kick up the flavor, but not add a lot of heat. And then here's the ingredient where I'm going to add a little more salt. And this is the only time I like using this pre-packaged store-bought Parmesan cheese. It's great for sprinkling on your food like this. I'm going to get a fork to kind of pierce the seasonings into the chicken breasts. Then I'm going to get some spray olive oil, and then just spray each breast before I turn them over. And that way all of those seasonings won't stick to the paper when I go to pound it. So I'm just going to repeat everything. A little salt, a little pepper on each breast, and more of the garlic garni, more of the Parmesan cheese. Oh, almost forgot the chili powder on this side. And I'm going to pierce this into the chicken breast. When I pound these later, it's also going to take that flavor and put it in the chicken breast. So I'm going to take another sheet of plastic wrap. I'm going to put it on top. Just kind of seal the edges a little bit so that it doesn't go flying everywhere. And I love this meat pounder. It's the best kind because it's very heavy. So I'm going to just move my breadboard over here to a little stronger surface. And I like to pound both sides, so I'm going to turn this over because I have the plastic wrap here. It's easy to turn over. So at this point, you could take this, roll it up, put it on a plate, put it in the fridge, and let it marinate for however long you want to. You can let it marinate overnight, you can let it marinate for an hour, or you can use it right away. And we're going to use it right away. I've got my pan heated. I put a little bit of olive oil in the pan, but just a little bit, maybe less than a tablespoon. But just to make sure I have it even, I'm going to spray a little more there. Now I've got some oat flour, and I'm going to dredge the chicken breast just lightly in oat flour before I cook them. What this is going to do is going to keep the moisture in the chicken, give it a little breading, but very little, and just a little bit on each side, and then it'll help thicken the sauce later too, which you will see. So a little bit of flour on there, put that in the pan, and I'm going to do that to each one of the chicken breasts. Now I'm going to let this cook, and it doesn't need to cook all the way. I'm going to cook the chicken just a couple of minutes per side, and while that's cooking, I am going to prepare my thickening agent. So I'm going to put a little chicken broth in here, maybe about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup, depending on how much sauce you're making. I'm making quite a bit, so I'm using a little bit more. And then I'm going to take some more oat flour and a good heaping tablespoon. And I'm going to sprinkle that in there. And I'm going to do maybe another half a tablespoon. Nice tight lid. You want to make sure you have a tight lid on your container. If you're not sure about it, maybe go outside and do this part. And I'm going to shake it up real good, and I'm just going to get it ready. All right, so since I don't have a whole lot of oil in the pan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them a spray olive oil, and as I pick the chicken breast up, I'm going to spray a little more olive oil underneath it so that it won't stick. And I'm just basically browning the chicken. So now the chicken's browning on the second side. I have some goat cheese. I put it in the freezer for about a half an hour, made it easier to slice. I've got some fresh Parmesan cheese. I've got some sun-dried tomatoes ready to go on top. And I have the chicken broth for the gravy. So I'm going to let this cook for just another minute. And I want it nice and brown. They're probably cooked about halfway. Now this pan's nice and hot, so I'm going to deglaze the pan with a little chicken broth. And I'm probably using about a cup because I want a lot of gravy. So I'm going to let that come to a boil. And then I'm just going to slowly pour this chicken broth and flour in here so it can thicken. And it really doesn't have much color right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little more garlic garlic, just a little bit. I'm going to add a little more pepper. I don't need to add salt. There's already plenty of salt in the chicken broth. And then, secret ingredient, chili powder. It'll also give it a nice flavor, a nice color, excuse me. All right. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, I'm going to put the chicken breast back in. There's that thick one. Excuse me. And I'm going to put all the rest of those right there. Get them in the gravy, move them around, turn them over. There we go. Get them nice and saturated in that chicken gravy. And then I'm going to put the lid on for just a couple of minutes. Turn the fire down to about a high simmer, somewhere between simmer and medium. Now, one thing you can add to this if you like is you can add basil to it. This is a really nice ingredient. Dried basil is perfectly fine. You can put it in your hand. And if you're adding basil, dry basil, if you move it between your fingers and pulverize it a little bit, you release some of that flavor. All right, this is looking pretty good here. I'm going to turn these over again. The thing about chicken is very easy to overcook it, so you want to be careful. While this is almost done, I'm going to take my goat cheese. Now this is the fat I'm adding into it. So this is real bubbly. I don't know if you can see this or not, but it's real bubbly now, and it's ready to get the finishing touches. I'm going to put goat cheese on top, and here's where you can decide how much fat you want to add. I'm going to add a couple of good round pieces to each chicken breast. I'm also going to put a little fresh Parmesan cheese on top. This is going to add a nice flavor and a nice look when it melts. On top of that, this is where the big flavor boost comes in. Sun-dried tomatoes that I have diced. I'm going to put that on top of the goat cheese, the Parmesan cheese, and the chicken breast. If some of it falls in the gravy, that's fine. We'll just add more color there. Just let it. And I'm going to be very generous with these sun-dried tomatoes and let some of it fall into the gravy. I'm going to top it off with a little more basil because it adds a nice color, a sweet flavor. You can certainly use fresh basil if you like, and if you do that, I would recommend waiting to the last possible moment so that it'll still be nice and green. I'm going to let that simmer for about 2 minutes and we'll be ready to serve. So we'll take a break and I'll be right back. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes. The chicken is ready. Now I don't know if you can see this or not. See how beautiful it is? So I went ahead and made some of those roasted mashed potatoes that we made last week. And they are right here. We're going to have a big salad beforehand. And here's those roasted mashed potatoes. And I'm going to kind of put them in there on the top. I am going to scoop out a piece of chicken, this chicken brine, and just kind of set it on top of those roasted mashed potatoes. There's some of that lovely gravy that we made. So we're going to take some of that, put it on top. And there we have chicken brine with roasted mashed potatoes. Thanks for coming, and I hope to see you again next week when we'll be making spicy spaghetti.